gloriously mingled. They are describing these beings as wearing a many-colored garment that is gloriously hued with gold shot throughout it. And the full description, the physical characteristics of the Essenes that I've compiled from the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Gnostic texts and elsewhere tells us that these beings have a humanoid body, a serpentine face, a many-colored garment. They rise up in the air like whirlwinds. They're luminous or radiant bodies. They wear feathered capes or cloaks. They have many eyes. They fluidly morph or change form and shapeshift. And they appear to have rivulets of molten fire and a radiance of many brilliant colors of exquisite hues. So here we are again putting the rainbow image on top of these beings as per the descriptions of them. And what I've done again uniquely in my research is to say, okay, I get it. These beings are the same as the rainbow body beings. And again, your Jewish scholars don't say this, the Tibetans don't match the two, but we're doing that. And I think it's going to be very beneficial for us to do this, to say that, okay, these high celestial beings, these teachers that the Essenes were living with, dwelled in their rainbow bodies of light. And this is what the perfection the Essenes were talking about actually refers to, is the attainment of this high level of manifestation. This is what it's all about. So let's go forward into the story of the Essene exemplar again. This is the morning of resurrection. Jesus is in the tomb. There's two angels dressed in white that are in that tomb. Several of the Gospels tell us that an angel of the Lord came down from heaven and entered into this tomb. Other Gospels tell us that his appearance was like lightning. This is a plasma being that is manifested in the tomb on Easter morning. His clothes were as white as snow. The guards were so afraid of him that they shook and became like dead men. And the angel said to them, "Rise and do not be afraid." Do not be afraid. That is the message of the Transfiguration as well. Rise and do not be afraid. The word glory means to glow rays. So they're telling us that these beings are luminous, humanoid, rainbow-like, and they glow rays. Now I'm just putting a cheesy plasma ball on top of this here, so you get the idea that when they show the feathers on these beings, they're probably not wearing capes or cloaks of feathers. It's the feathery-like nature of the plasma that's being described here. These are super fast-moving plasma light beings, and that when we see them to our human eye, in our narrow range of human perception, we're seeing them as, or describing them as feathered. But they're really not feathered. They're plasma-like. And another cheesy plasma ball put on top just to... I need to get some new animations, I realize that, but you get the idea.
There's a cavity under the paw, and who talked about halls of records of the Atlanteans? 10,000 plus BC or so. Edgar Cayce, of course. Have we heard a lot about Edgar Cayce? When I first did this work, had I heard of Edgar Cayce? Well, no, the truth is I was not so ignorant that never heard of Edgar Cayce, but I didn't know anything really about Edgar Cayce, and I didn't know that he had talked about halls of records or the Atlanteans and all that type of thing. But as you know, Edgar Cayce, he was a sleeping prophet, as sometimes he's called, and I don't need to introduce him to this audience, but he talked about a chamber that could be a hall of records of the Atlanteans that could be found near or under the paws of the Great Sphinx.
I wrote my first book about the discovery of the first European pyramids. And then in that book, I wrote that we were going to discover a network of prehistorical tunnels. And then I got attacked. That compact material, the pyramid builders made tunnels, get the material out. What did they do with the material, with the stones and rocks and sand? They used it to make those concrete blocks. The only thing they did, they added the binder. Not cement, they didn't go to Home Depot, but they used clay, all natural materials. There is a direct link between the tunnels and the pyramid. So we know that they are the same builders.
Sad je bilo to, ne znam. Evo ga, sad ide sjeveroistok. Pokazuje sad.
Always young people and young at their hearts.
Meni je interesantnija stvar.
Da ne zidam. Možda kažeš da mi ne zidam.
Last year we had a gentleman visiting us who sold 62 million copies of his books. The guy from Switzerland, his name, Erich von Däniken. And while we were checking the tunnels, I was explaining him everything, and it's been like for 2.5 hours already. His assistant was filming us all the time. So now we're going to see what was happening in front of camera. Look how many orbs are coming from the side tunnels. They've been flying, hundreds of them. At different speeds, they are of different sizes. Going zigzag, coming back.
Now, getting into a little more of an esoteric thought that goes back to the Egyptians, one of the perspectives when we look up into the constellations is how we view them from Earth, right? But some people embrace the concept that it's not what we see when we look up, it's what deity sees when it looks down on us. Back in ancient times, Osiris was very important, not just for esoteric reasons and for teaching life lesson reasons and educating people, but also for practical reasons like navigation. And one of the things that was very important in ancient times was the pole star, so they could figure out where they were. And the quickest way to find the pole star was using Orion and the belt stars, because it roughly points to Sirius, which in Egyptian mythology represents Isis. Orion is Osiris, and these are the consorts in Egyptian mythology and other cultures as well. So if we extend this line, it's not exactly straight, but symbolically we have something else. Remember, Sirius is what the belt star is pointing to, or Isis, right? The goddess. Maybe what's going on with this alignment in New York City is it's pointing out to its consort, Isis, Osiris, the goddess. Kind of cool, huh? So let's finish in Washington, D.C. If you're going to be a good scientist, you better test your data in real life. So Janet and I took a trip to Washington to check out their thesis. Now, what was cool is we had to go up by the ellipse, and we're watching the shadow. Unfortunately, it was cloudy and partly cloudy. So it was going in, it was going out, and we're walking in the shadow and moving like this as it moves, and it was actually a lot of fun. Of course, the cops that were watching us were thinking, what the hell's going on here? But I went over and smoothed it over, and they let us go, and actually they kind of took an interest in it. And here's Janet kind of playing in the shadow. She'd stick her arm out, and you could see it, and then she'd go like this, and it was a lot of fun. And at one point, I was taking pictures, and I was taking, the point is if you're standing at the tip of the shadow, then the sun is right at the top of the monument. And because it was partly cloudy, I was able to get pictures. That's the sun.
I asked God to come through me to do this presentation for you. I prepared a PowerPoint just to get grounded a little bit. And the first image that you see is me and Joshua Tree giving thanks to God. Now, there's a lot of talk about what God is, who God is. And in one of my channels with Spirit, which I call Brilliant Essence, which is where we all come from, we are all brilliant essences, they talked about the fact that God, in the image that I see, is like the Hindus call the great sun. Now imagine that all that is a huge sun. It encompasses absolutely everything, everything, the known, the unknown, you, me, Gaia, everything. This sun decided to self-express. It is divine consciousness come into form to self-express. And actually, in one of my guided, self-guided meditations, I went to the point of singularity, which is absolutely tremendous, a tremendous experience. I collapsed into a one point in time and space. I was nothing and everything at the same time.
Life. And Egyptologists have said, nah, there's no way that the ancient Egyptians could have done that. They wouldn't have had that knowledge to extract the DMT from the bark of Acacia nilotica. But let's ask ourselves, where do we get the word chemistry from? Does anybody know? We get the word chemistry from the ancient name for Egypt, Kemet. The Arabs spoke of alchemit. That's where we get alchemy from. The very word chemistry is rooted in the name of ancient Egypt. And therefore, I think it's highly likely that their reverence for the tree of life was not only to do with how it looked, but to do with the experiences it unleashed. And I think we can probably say that we do know what the ancient Egyptians were smoking. So, the second shrine of Tutankhamun's tomb. You can see it in the Cairo Museum. What we see here is the initiate connected. There's stars in the sky, and then you can see rays coming down from the stars into the forehead, into the third eye of the initiate. I mean, this has got to be a highly significant scene, very meaningful scene that somehow the star energy is entering through the third eye of the initiate. And it's fascinating, really, when we talk of the third eye, the pineal gland, how much ancient Egyptian symbolism there is that appears to relate to that. This is a meme that's going around on the internet, but it's actually very interesting. The eye of Horus compared to the pineal gland is very similar indeed. And this pine cone symbolism that we find in ancient Egypt is absolutely intriguing. Let's jump over to the other side of the world. I showed this slide last night, the aerial shot of Tiwanaku, the Kalasasea and the Akapana pyramid. There are also huge statues in Tiwanaku. And the ancient astronaut lobby love these statues. And they say that these are alien ray guns, which the statues are holding in their hands. That's a suggestion that it's some kind of alien technology. But actually, the truth is much more interesting than that. What these objects in the hands of the statues are in fact snuff trays for DMT-bearing plants.
So welcome. Thank you for coming tonight. And welcome to the opening ceremony night for the Gift and the Shift Convergence Conference. And my name is Kelly Alexander, and I will be your host this evening. And I want to thank you all for keeping this energy of silence and holding such beautiful space. We are in ceremony tonight, so thank you for doing that.
To observe and embrace all that you come across. The beauty of the distances are not there, for our heart has the ability to go wherever Spirit allows for you to go.
In the Inca tradition, in 1992 to 2012 is when we start to experience the new sun, the sun rising. So after December 21st, when we celebrate the Kappa Raimi, the festivity, the fiesta of the power, we start to see the full sun.
Namaste.